the enthusiasm you have. So when we're factoring, we start with GCF. We go to the Super X, but yesterday we talked about special products, right? And if you know it's special and you know the trick, you can use it. If you don't understand the trick, what are you going to do? The Super X, and you're not going to use the trick, right? Okay, so that's our factoring part. We've been factoring for days. Now the solving part, so we factored. Our final step after we factor is going to be to solve, just like you did in your warm-up. So you're going to set each factor equal to 0. So after you factor, so you're going to do all the hard work, and then we're going to set each factor equal to 0. And just so we remember, when it says solve, you're looking for solutions, roots, zeros, x-intercepts. They all mean the same thing. And it's where your graph crosses your x-axis. Yes? And the reason we're allowed to set it equal to 0 is because when it crosses the x-axis, my y value is 0. Okay, those are going to be things that you want to remember. Ready to factor? Yes. Okay. So the big thing is as we move through these, I'm going to give you problems and you have to be able to identify what kind of factoring you're doing. Okay, but as always, you're going to start with GCF and then you go from there. So if we look at this first one, is there a GCF? Is there something that goes into 4x squared and 2x? 2x? Okay, so if I pull out a 2x, what am I left with? So 4 divided by 2 is 2. I had x squared. I pulled out an x, so what's left? An x. And then I had a 2x and I took it all out, so what's left? 1. Remember, you have to have that 1. How can I check to make sure I factored that correctly? Distribute 2x times 2x, is that 4x squared? 2x times 1, is that 2x? Okay. Now I'm going to look at my problem and look at my leftovers. Can I use the Super X to do anything else? No? Why? The highest exponent in this case is 1. I no longer have a 2. So what does that mean? You're done. No more factoring. Okay, so we went through our factoring. The final step is to solve. What in this top equation tells me I'm probably going to solve it? The equal sign. Anytime you have an equal sign, you solve for the variable. Okay? So I'm going to solve just what you did in your warm-up. So what am I going to set equal to 0? 2x equals 0 and 2x plus 1 equals 0. When you divide by 2, what's 0 divided by 2? 0. And then I'm going to subtract 1. So 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. X equals negative 1/2. So we're taking both things that we've learned in this unit and putting them together. The problem is if you don't factor correctly, are you ever going to get the right answer when you solve? No. So you have to watch your factoring. Okay, that's going to be the biggest part. Let's do one more together, and then I'm going to give you a couple to try. How about x squared minus 7x plus 10? Okay. When I go to factor, I'm going to look for my GCF. Do I have a GCF in any of those three terms? No? Okay. Is my highest exponent a 2? Great. So I'm going to go straight to the super X. What's A? 1. What's B? -7. And C? 10. What goes on top of my super X? A times C, 1 times 10 is 10. On the bottom is -7. And I have a 1x and a 1x. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to -7. Annie? Okay, Annie says -5 and -2. Do we agree with that? Let's just check. -5 times -2 is +10. -5 minus 2 is -7. Because my leading coefficient, the number in front of x squared, is 1, I don't have any reducing to do. So those are going to be my factors. So I have x minus 5 and x minus 2, and I still have it set equal to 0 because I need to solve. So final step, I'm going to write it. Okay. X minus 5 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. What does x actually equal? 5 and 2. Are we okay with that? Okay, I'm going to give you 3 problems to do. You can work with your group. So I'll give you a few minutes or so to do this. Okay, start with those 3. Number 3. Someone tell me what they did for number 3. What did you notice about number 3? There's no B. Okay, so we only have 2 terms. Did you check for a GCF? Everyone should be saying yes. Was there one? No? Okay, so what's my option after that? I can do the super X. Did anyone do something different? Michaela, what'd you do? The weird thing when you factor them, the one thing that we did yesterday, the trick. So did you go through the qualifications of it? Were there 2 terms? Is there a subtraction sign between? Are they perfect squares? What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of 49? 7. Okay, so if you noticed that, awesome. If you didn't and used the super X, you should have gotten the same thing. So you should have gotten x plus 7 and x minus 7, even with the super X. If you use the super X, what was A? If you use the super X, what's A? 1. What's B? 0. And C? -49. Okay? I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. So x equals -7 and x equals +7. We did okay? Okay. Number 4. If you start with GCF, is there one? Does 3 go into 16? No? Okay. So did you go straight to the super X? What is A? What is B? And C? Okay, so 3 times -12 is -36. I have a -16 on bottom, a 3x, and a 3x. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to -36 and add to -16. 18 and 2, which one needs to be negative? Okay, so negative 18. Now remember, listen carefully when I say this. You should always check. Negative 18 times 2 is negative 36. Negative 18 plus 2 is negative 16. I need to reduce if possible. So here, 3 goes into itself once. 3 goes into 18 6 times. So I have an x minus 6. This side doesn't reduce, so it's a 3x plus 2. And I'm going to solve each of those. So x minus 6 equals 0. 3x plus 2 equals 0. Did you get x equals 6 and x equals negative 2/3? Yes? Awesome. Number 5. Is there a GCF? Yes? What'd you pull out?
3.
A 3. So if I pull out a 3, I'm left with x squared minus 9. So I look at what's left inside. My highest exponent's a 2, so I can use the super x, or I can see if it meets my qualifications. Are there only 2 terms? Is there a subtraction sign? Are both perfect squares? Square root of x squared. Square root of 9. 3. Again, if you use a super x, that's okay. So in factored form, I have my GCF out front, which is 3. I have an x plus 3 and an x minus 3, and that all equals 0. How many terms am I setting equal to 0? Did you remember to set this front one equal to 0? Now in this case, does 3 equal 0? No, so we can cross it out. It doesn't matter. But what if my GCF is a 3x? Right? Then it matters. Okay, so you don't want to forget that one. So x plus 3 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And your answers are negative 3 and positive 3. Are we okay with that? Okay. I'm going to give you one last one. I know, I'm so mean. I want you to potentially work with your group if you need to. Talk about it. See if you can figure this one out. Okay, so you started with GCF. Is there a GCF?
All right, pause. If you didn't get an answer, you probably want to listen. Just saying.
Just saying. Did you get a GCF? Okay, so you went to the super X? Okay. We saw y'all do that. What's A? What's B? Negative 1. What's C? 5. So 6 times 5 is 30. I have a negative 1 on bottom, a 6x, and a 6x. Right? And then you said, okay, I need to find 2 numbers that multiply to 30 and add to negative 1. And you went directly to 6 and 5. Most of you. Right? Okay, so how do I make negative 1? A negative 6? Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Great. What's negative 6 times 5? But I have a positive 30. Is there any other factors of 30 that would give me 1? 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't work, 5 and 6. There's nothing else, right?
Not factorable.
Okay. Now, I was hesitant to give you this problem, and here's why. As soon as I show you that something's not factorable, anytime the problem's too hard and you don't want to do it, I automatically see not factorable.
Not factorable.
Okay? That's not an option. So there will be, I think there's only one on your test. I will make sure on the day of the test, I'm going to say there's one problem that's not factorable. Because I don't want you to write not factorable on everything.
If we tell you that and you put it for 3, then we're going to not feel bad about marking you up.
Nope. Okay, but do you see the importance of checking your factors here? Not only do they add to the right thing, but they also multiply to the right thing. And a lot of you got stuck and were like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So it's going to be not factorable. The good thing for you is in the next couple units, I'm going to teach you how to still solve this. Oh, what? I know. Okay, so do not write not factorable just because you do not want to do the work. You have to go through the process and actually try. If I see a whole paper of homework that says not factorable, you ain't getting a stamp. Okay?
Not gradable.
Not gradable. There you go.